from Dan Sadler, we've now got someone else who's going to get us moving, hopefully. Don't forget, Grow Live 2020. Get your pictures, get your selfies, get your screenshots, get those on social media. Tell people what they're missing. Gary, can they still get the recordings even if this event has passed? Can you still buy them?
Yes, you can. But
there you go.
Yes, you can.
I should have asked that before we started recording. It doesn't matter. If you're watching this on a replay and you're enjoying what you're seeing, tell other people they can still buy the recordings to these replays and benefit from all these fantastic speakers. So our next speaker coming up is a Q&A session, actually. And I'm going to hand over to the one and only, the man without whom none of us would be here, Mr. Gary Jones, who'll introduce us and run the next session. Gary, over to you.
Cheers, Wayne. Cheers, Wayne. So I have got a fantastic person with me now for this Q&A session. It's going to be fantastic. It's all going to be about dance and movement. I have got the person with two names. You might know her as Charlotte Cooper. You might know her as Charlotte Elizabeth. I know her as the Dancing Queen, which I've just coined, and she's going to hate me for that. And if she never wants me to use it again, that's fine. Charlotte, how are you doing?
I'm all good, thank you.
Cool. So, this Q&A is about you. It's about dance. It's about movement. So just while people kind of throw the questions into the chat, or in a second when they start kind of coming through, I've got a couple for you as well. But just to kind of let people know right at the start, who is Charlotte Elizabeth? You know, where do you come from, and why should people direct questions about dance movement to you?
So I'm Charlotte Elizabeth, and I'm a bit of a crazy business owner that runs two businesses. So one is for young people and young adults. The other is primarily for weddings and kind of any special occasion. I've danced all my life. It's all I've ever done, and I'm sure we'll get into it at some point, but I had a very expensive injury as well.
Yeah, so let's have a chat about that injury. So you were 18, weren't you, when it happened?
Yes, so I was in my first year of uni. It happened day one of uni, and sadly the NHS were unable to help. So me and my parents had to make the decision to go private because I was effectively on a dance degree but wasn't able to dance. We took the not very easy decision to go private and paid 12 grand to fix the injury.
Proper serious stuff.
Yeah, so 12 grand, and that was just to be able to walk better. Though we weren't sure at the time what was going to happen in terms of me for dance. Thankfully, it was the right decision, and it's led me to where I am today. But yeah, having to make a decision at 18 of, do you pay 12 grand to fix an injury, or do you completely rethink the thing that you've done for your whole life? Wasn't something I really wanted to be doing, but my attitude was not dancing's not an option.
Fair play. And that's probably as much as we're going to go into right now for it, because we did a whole podcast episode of The Grow Show all about it. So if you want to check that out, it's episode number 9. So check it out on your podcast platform, The Grow Show with Charlotte Cooper. I will change that to Charlotte Elizabeth if you want me to.
Either.
But it's episode 9. But from then, things started to change massively. So kind of fast forward kind of a few years, what are you up to now in terms of dance? And remember, guys, if you've got questions, pop them into the chat.
So those that have either listened to the podcast or know my story know that upon returning to uni after my operation, I got one of 6 places in the world to dance in South Africa for a month with their first professional dance company. And it's from that experience that I knew that teaching was how I was going to have any form of dance career, because I could dance and protect my hip, because naturally there is always going to be a weakness there. So I then went on to do a teaching degree at the point that the government decided there's no value in art subjects, so it was pulled from the school curriculum. So at the age of 22, I went self-employed. Again, not an easy decision to make, but it was kind of another one of those, not dancing and not having a dance career is not an option. I'll go any which way possible. So kind of fast forward 4 years from that, it has been a roller coaster. And yeah, 4 years later, I'm still running a dance business. In fact, I now run two. So yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but my key thing is that not dancing is not an option.
Oh, so let's throw it over to questions now, because I've got a couple that I want to kind of share with you, but I believe there's a few in the chat. So Wayne's just put one through, which is a really cool one. So how does programs like Britain's Got Talent with diversity and strictly from dancing affect your business? Do they give you a boost, or do they detract from it? How does it work?
So they massively do give a boost, and it's great to see people getting more interested in dance, particularly the stigma of boys and dance. Still now, it's still a stigma, but it's becoming less and less, particularly on Strictly with last year, and Johannes kind of opening up about being gay and the challenges that he had of being gay in South Africa. So yeah, it does help, particularly the wedding business. I get couples that are like, oh, we want to be able to move and kind of want to be able to do like they do on Strictly and make it look so effortless. So in terms of that business, it massively helps. And obviously Britain's Got Talent at the moment is going through a bit of a challenge because of Diversity's performance. It was the right thing for them to do. There wasn't anything wrong with what they did. They were a dance group of their kind of profile was kind of the right thing to help raise awareness. And that's all they were doing. They were raising awareness of this problem that we have got going on at the minute. But yeah, they do definitely help. And interestingly, Strictly are doing something different this year, and they are going to be having a same-sex couple.
Which shouldn't be a surprise, really.
No, we knew it was going to happen at some point, but one of the celebrities involved this year asked to be with a same-sex partnering, and they're actually going to do it. So that will be interesting to see how that goes down this year.
Is there going to be a kind of a physics kind of, I don't know, are they going to be able to do moves that other people won't be able to do, or would it be a different style of dance, or would it make no difference? I don't know much about dance in terms of Strictly, so
it shouldn't make much difference, because my understanding is that it's female to female.
Okay.
So it shouldn't make a difference, because there's nothing to say that the female can't lift the male anyway. Like this whole thing of, it has to be the male lead. The one thing I do with my wedding couples is I ask the couple who they want to be the lead, if any lead. So I can't see it being a challenge or things, oh, they can't do this style, they can't do that style. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they work it and how it goes.
Nice. How, if someone wants to start to get into dance or start to move their body more, how would they? You know, what's the first steps?
Quite simply, put some music on and see what your body does. It's as simple as
that.
Is
it that simple?
It is that simple of rhythm. The way that I always remember how to spell rhythm is rhythm has your two hips moving. Put a piece of music on and your body will move. We all do it. We sit there and our foot taps. Let that feed into the rest of your body. That's as simple as it is. And then if you like it even more, find a dance class and keep going.
What stops people from dancing?
Our head, our confidence, our worrying what people are going to think, what people are going to say. We Brits in particular, we worry very much about what others are going to say or think about us. So because of that, we don't do it instead of ignoring it and carrying on.
It makes sense. To be fair, when I was growing up in the 80s, and I think actually it was probably typical for that time. My dad was a typical stand at the bar at kind of the weddings or parties with a drink in his hand, and the mums and the daughters were dancing. And I can remember, and this phrase echoes with me, and this is quite scary to think about it like this. But my dad just said to me once, well, if you want to get a girl, you need to learn how to dance. And that was from a kind of a young age. But actually, that fills me with dread now, having that mindset. It's completely, that's the first time I thought about it in that amount of years. But it's scary how times have changed. And it's actually more open now. And yeah, people can dance and people can move their bodies. They can. And there's some really cool things in the chat that I just want to kind of shout out about. Paul Newton, love how dancing can make a relationship even stronger. That's great. And based on that, you must see it all the time in terms of wedding dances and getting people to dance for their weddings. That must be a really cool feeling to see that.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's also, sometimes it's a big pressure, because sometimes it's, and I'm going to go very stereotypical because of the nature of some of the clients that I've worked with, but it's usually the female that books that is really into it, and then the guy is like, oh, I'll do it because it's our wedding, and isn't really into it. But then in the classes, they're actually the one that is more into it and kind of just going with it. The last couple in particular that I worked with, obviously pre-COVID, there was a move that the guy was really struggling with. So we adapted it, and I could just tell, I was like, you're not liking this, let's pull it out. He'd practiced in between the classes and added it back into the routine. I was willing to just scrap that move, not come back to it, or maybe come back at a later date, but he could kind of see that his missus was enjoying the move, that it flowed. He'd practiced in between and added it back in.
Nice.
That's my job.
And I suppose actually,
they've got that confidence.
I suppose that, yeah, you've got the confidence. He's got the kind of, he feels comfortable to do that. But also, that, I'm sure, going back to Paul's point, that probably shows his other half and Drew how serious he is about that. And he's made that commitment to be able to do that in between sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say to couples that do some practice in between your sessions. Don't over practice, because obviously on the day it'll then be, oh, it's this blooming thing again. But actually getting that muscle memory, because obviously 9 times out of 10, they're not a trained dancer. So it is using muscles and body parts that their body's like, what the hell are you doing to me? Building that muscle memory in so that then it does feel natural on the day. So I always say practice, but don't over practice it. Otherwise it'll just become, oh, it's this point of that again. I don't want to be doing it, and it won't have the effect that you want it to be having. So there is definitely a fine line of over practicing on these sort of things.
Cool. I'm going to throw it over to people. So has anyone got any questions? If they do, put their hands up and I'll put yourself off you and go from there. Dan,
so muscle memory. I just want you to elaborate a little bit more about muscle memory. It's really important for musicians as well. And something I wanted to ask was, do you think that with practice, that you said don't over practice, which I completely agree with as a musician, but do you find that practice enough so that it flows? Where do you see it? Like, how does it work for you in dance? Because as a musician, I have to practice until I can't go wrong.
Yeah, and it is kind of the same in dance, but it is also that very fine line of over practice can sometimes mean there's more mistakes because it's too in tune. And when I say muscle memory, again, I don't really understand the science of it, but we all know that repetition of things, your brain remembers that repetition and it sticks. So yeah, it is that kind of practice of till it feels natural to you and it just flows. Because like I say, 9 times out of 10, the couples I'm working with haven't done the years of dance training I have. So to start with, they're like, what on earth are you doing? Like, and their body just feels really stiff. So by practicing, their body then goes, oh, it's just this. And all dance is, it's just moving. There's nothing fancy to it. It's just moves placed together in a sequence that makes it look fancy.
Hello, I've got a question. Silly question. So I've done Amdram. So so sadly, I have video evidence of having attempted to dance, including I took a couple of lead roles that required me. So I have the video evidence that I think the old term would be I'm a hoofer rather than a dancer. I can move in the right direction roughly, but I'm not a dancer. But my question is, I forgot what it was. What's the funniest request you've had? You must have had some great requests. Or is there a time when they've said we'd like to dance and you've watched them and you've gone, yeah, perhaps you ought to do some crochet or something. It might be easier. Is there any time that's happened?
The one that I get a lot is we want to do the Dirty Dancing lift. So then I ask to see a picture of the dress. And then I have to say, and what's your ceiling height like at home for where you're going to be practicing and learning this? And then I go, yeah, not happening. Because what people forget, and you won't really see on camera, is the guy, again, 9 times out of 10, it's the guy. He's got his arms in front of him. He's going to put his hands on her hips. He's then got to take her full body weight above his head. If you've got a big poofy dress, regardless of whether she's stick thin and as light as a feather, and you haven't got the ceiling height for practicing, that ain't happening. So that's the one that I get often. And people think, oh, it's so easy. And I'm like, yeah, you forget that in the film, it probably wasn't them, and they had lots and lots of practice, and they were trained dancers. And this isn't to say that non-dancers can't do it, but if you haven't got the ceiling height to practice, if you've got a 6 foot tall guy and the ceiling's only here, well, that ain't going to happen. So yeah, that's the one of kind of making people aware of, it's not just bum, bum, it is like full body weight going above your head. That, yeah, they don't take that into account.
I can justify that. Because my wife is, I'm quite lucky. I'm married to a thin lady, but when doing the Amdram, and one of the roles required me to just do a lift straight up, not with my wife, with the person playing opposite me, who again has a thin figure, but what you tend to forget is muscle has more mass and is quite heavy. So my wife used to be thin but quite solid because her muscles are built up in the right place. So you go to, and it's really interesting. Sorry, I've taken over Charlotte's thing now, but what a lot of people don't realise is that the girl, when she's, I'm doing the general man lifting woman. That's just how it was. That's how I've done it. Is that the girl has to help, because if they just become a dead weight, she ain't going anywhere. Unless she's tiny. So it's interesting. They don't realise that the woman has to actually have to do a bit for it as well to get momentum and get everything going in the right direction. That's I learned that. I found that the hard way. Yeah.
You usually do when you end up in a heap on the floor and go, oh, okay.
Yeah, sort of. I think Paul had a question next. He had either that or he needs a toilet. I'm not sure, but we'll find out.
He's got thumbs up. So yeah, Paul, go for it, buddy.
Hello, mate. Right, and I've had a bit of your story. I'm going to ask quite a basic question, hopefully. If you had a couple that maybe the guy was, mid-40s and his wife had never been in entertainment before, maybe the guy has been in musicals and done stuff and now really shouldn't, but how would you say to that couple is the best way to get back into dancing? When you've got one who's an absolute entertainer and exhibitionist and the other one's a bit of an introvert and quieter but has an interest in dance. How should that couple find out more?
Quite simply, find a local Amdram or local couples dance class, go along for a trial and go from there. It would be my advice of, if your local Amdram group is running now, or whether they're online or whatever the case may be, just get in contact and go along, see what their trial process is. You may find that go to one or the other. You might also find that the introvert actually comes out of their shell because of the nature of what it is. But yeah, just find something in your local area and start. So
literally just Google couples dance classes or something like that.
Yeah, so see if there's like salsa classes or ballroom classes for couples, or even just an adult dance class. It doesn't have to be that you're going to be dancing as a couple, just an adult dance class that you go along together. Just start.
Awesome. Thank you.
Nice. I've got a quick question. How about children dancing? Are more children dancing or now than they have been before? In previous years, or are kind of people slowly stopping dancing?
Ooh, I would say there are definitely more of them. I know in my local area, there's more classes popping up everywhere. Everywhere I look, suddenly on Facebook, it's, this dance class is starting and that dance class. And definitely for the younger age, more boys are coming through. So I do a lot of after school clubs, and I'm starting to see boys coming into the after school clubs, and it's not it's cheap childcare kind of thing. It's a genuine interest of, little Johnny wants to come to a dance class, so we'll start him in an after school club, see how he gets on before we go looking and paying out for the external that can get a bit pricey. So I would say it's a fine balance of the kids is growing, but I would also say that the adults is almost taking over because of the different fitness brands available. And obviously now that everyone's gone online, there's so much more available that I would say it's slowly becoming more of an even split. But yeah, dance is always going to be popular. I can't foresee that it will ever be that there's no dance classes. I would be shocked if that ever happens.
Nice.
Anyone
got any questions?
I think that ties in with the thing earlier. I think play BGT, although it's got it, I'm not a big fan of it. I think people like diversity and all those dance groups, especially when they're young boys going on, they're doing good. I think that really helps just take that, because there is still that stigma. My son, as I say, started out as a ballet, he wanted to do ballet, and he did. But as soon as he got a bit older, I was all worried about what other people think. But I think those, having those things on BGT and AGT just helps so much. Just take that stigma away from that, and just give them the confidence. And you find some amazing performers. I've seen some amazing boy performers that are now in the West End, and it's just nice to watch their progress all the way through. It's great. You didn't answer the other question though. Have you had anyone that you've had to say, no, this isn't for you?
No, I actually haven't.
No?
I've not actually had that with a couple. I've always found a way of, like the couple that I said about earlier, that if the move isn't working, of adapting it and finding a way to make it work for them. So I very much work with the couple on their ability, but with my expertise. So as of yet, I've not had a couple where I've gone, yeah, I'm really sorry, this isn't for you. Yeah.
Perfect. Gary, Zoom 101, you have to unmute yourself before you start talking. I mean, have you not done this before?
Thank you. And that's why you're the host. So there was one question in here, which I think Paul mentioned. And that was, and apologies if it wasn't Paul, but it could have been really easy once you had your setback, Charlotte, to not kind of go forward and carry on. Was kind of getting another job or kind of getting a desk job ever on the cards for you? Or, are you that passionate about dance you just wanted to do it?
It's a combination of things. So yes, it does crop up every now and then, and obviously due to COVID, it has kind of cropped up of, where's this going? Part of it is stubbornness of certain people in my life from the past that said, oh, you'll never survive uni, you'll never this, you'll never that, was always putting me down. And I obviously now have 2 degrees and 3 businesses. So kind of there's a stubbornness of trying to prove to some people that, no, I can do this. And others, it is just the passion of, you have those moments where you work with a couple who they were really anxious, they were really nervous about it. And then they send you their video and you can just see the joy on their faces doing their dance, and they leave you like this most fantastic review on your Facebook page or somewhere else. Or you have that kid that they don't speak to you for like 3 weeks and barely join in, and you're kind of questioning, oh, do I need to be having a word with parents of, I don't think this is for you. And then next thing you know, they've come running into class. You can't kind of shut them up because they're coming up with 1,000,001 ideas and they don't want to go home. And that's why you keep doing it. So yeah, there have been times when I have, as Paul well knows, have completely wanted to throw the towel in and gone, I'm getting a job. And then I have those moments and I go, no, I'm not, because I don't enjoy having a job. So yeah, it's a mixture of passion and stubbornness.
And do you know what? I think that's a brilliant time to finish his questions and answers off, just with that kind of end note. So thank you so much for your time today. If anyone's got any kind of questions that they want to throw over to you, where can they find you on social?
Anywhere and everywhere. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. If you just do a quick search for Charlotte Elizabeth, I will pop up somewhere.
That's brilliant. So thank